Welcome back to the stream. I'm going to check the audio here. I always forget to do
really
it.
Quickly. If we don't check the audio, then we end up echoing and we don't realize.
God damn, I sound good.
Shut up.
Y'all came for the good stuff. Yeah. Welcome to another edition of Revisited for the First Time, an ongoing series where we watch and rewatch something.
Yeah. One of us watches it for the first time, but for the other person, it's a rewatch.
Yeah.
This is mostly going to be John showing me new stuff because I don't watch a lot. Yeah. You've showed me a lot of like brand new things that I've never seen before.
Yeah.
Some of which I appreciate.
Anyway, so to go in line with our last two episodes, today we are talking about the Star Wars sequel trilogy.
Yes.
This has been a long time coming. You know, I kind of appreciated doing it this way because, Kendra, your like kind of introduction into like the Star Wars universe kind of started, I know it didn't actually start with this, but the higher interest in it started through The Mandalorian, right?
Yes.
And Pedro Pascal.
Yeah, my Star Wars obsession really started. It's not even an obsession. It all stemmed through my Pedro Pascal obsession. So really, I credit you for that introduction, but truly it was him. It was always him, and it will always be him. Right here. Right here. I carry him with me.
Yeah, so it was kind of nice, like reverse engineering. So like starting with The Mandalorian, which falls more in the timeline of the original trilogy anyway. So that was kind of nice going into that. But yeah, we made our way through the original trilogy. We made our way through the prequels. You can check those out on YouTube right now. Yeah, now we're here at the end of the Skywalker saga.
The end of the Skywalker saga. What a long ass saga it has been.
There's a lot of ground to cover.
Yes.
There's a lot of feelings and thoughts, so we're just gonna hop right into it, starting with Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. This came out in 2015. It was directed by J.J. Abrams. It was written by J.J. Abrams, Lawrence Kasdan, and Michael Arndt. Now, Lawrence Kasdan was actually a screenwriter on both The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Something I love about this movie in particular is that it feels like they were really trying to capture the essence of Star Wars. And a lot of that, I think they acknowledge, has a lot to do with nostalgia, particularly with like nostalgia for the original trilogy.
Yeah.
Because nothing from the prequels were mentioned in these movies at all. And it would have been a little weird if they had been. But anyway, we'll get into that just a little bit more. But yeah, it started with the screenplay as well. Music by John Williams, of course, who's done every Star Wars movie in the Skywalker saga. And the cast features Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, Oscar Isaac, Adam Driver, Domhnall Gleeson, Gwendolyn Christie, Lupita Nyong'o, Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, and Mark Hamill. We also saw the return of Anthony Daniels as C-3PO and Peter Mayhew as Chewbacca.
That Harrison Ford has a bright career ahead of him.
Yeah, he's really talented. I think he's going to go on to do great things.
I think he's going to go far.
Yeah. And yeah, we had our new trio, much like the original. We had Finn, Poe Dameron, and Rey, who is our main protagonist, as well as the new villains Kylo Ren, General Hux, Supreme Leader Snoke, and the First Order.
Is General Hux that ginger?
Yes.
Gotcha.
You know he was in Harry Potter?
Yes.
He was one of the Weasleys. I didn't know that.
You are Ginger in Harry Potter. You are one of the Weasleys. You have no other options. That's all you can be.
We mentioned briefly a little while ago the prequels and just how it would have been a little weird for them to mention or really use a whole lot from that, but because that was the last trilogy before this one that was made, I think we should talk a little bit about the tonal differences. But actually, before we do, what are your impressions of this episode 7 here?
I remember when it first came out, I remember it being a big deal, but I didn't know why. I don't think I had realized how long it had been since there had been a Star Wars movie. So 2015, I must have been in college. I had no friends to go see it with, so It wasn't even like on my horizon or possibility. So I think it just kind of like, meh. So I don't even remember a lot of like the other people around me's reaction to it when it first came out.
Right.
Whereas like the very last one I kind of remember, which we'll talk about later. Especially coming off the prequels, which felt very different for a lot of reasons from the originals. This felt more like going back. It captured something that the prequels didn't do well. I think part of it was technology-wise, it just looked 10 times better. But also going back to like just ragtag group of friends running around the galaxy.
Yeah.
And now that I think about it, they didn't really have that in the prequels.
The prequels spent so much time, like George Lucas spent so much time showing off what he could do with this new technology.
Yeah.
And I think the story suffered because of that.
Yeah.
And the story was
A
confused.
star-crossed love story.
Yeah,
kind
and like
of,
political
but
jargon.
But only in second and third. The first one was like political, boring.
But yeah, so I think especially the Force Awakens really worked hard to capture that original feeling of kind of wonder and like
Exploration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. And it was interesting because I think even J.J. Abrams acknowledged that with this movie, he was basically building a new movie on the skeleton of A New Hope, of the original Star Wars, which if you think about it, it kind of is just an updated version of A New Hope, because you have, the light versus the dark, the Resistance versus the First Order, Jedi versus Sith, however you want to frame it.
A droid with a map trying to find a woman.
Exactly.
A person to help.
I think The Force Awakens is probably my favorite of the sequel trilogy.
I think so. For me as well.
The one regrettable line for me is when they have Finn say, "Droid, please."
Yeah, that's not great, huh?
Yeah, not a good look, JJ. Not a good look,
that
Lawrence.
was not good.
Not a good look, Michael. But I will say, though, the story they had began setting up with this movie, it felt fun, and it felt like there was a number of ways they could have gone with it. And we'll talk a little bit more about where they did go with it. But before we do, I want to talk a little bit about some of our new characters. So we have Rey, who is kind of just this orphan on Jakku, and she's got this connection to the Force. She's kind of that, they mentioned in the movie, that awakening, because really the only one out there is Luke, Leia.
Is Leia a Jedi? She never finished her training, right?
No, she did. So we'll get more into that with the Rise of Skywalker and what they were trying to do with that movie. Still having that like lineage and connection to the Force, which is also similar to A New Hope, with Luke's lineage and connection to the Force. And then we have Kylo Ren, kind of a similar story for him, because he's also connected to the Jedi and the light. He has this internal battle of light and dark. And he's got a hell of a whole lot of temper tantrums.
Yeah, he's a real fucking dick, isn't he?
Yeah. Some other things I like about meeting Rey is just that it was a different type of hero. Luke was someone who yearned for adventure. Rey wanted a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really strong motivation for a character. And I don't know. I really, really liked Rey. And that's what connected her with Finn,
I just appreciate the Star Wars movies. If we're just looking at it through the lens of female representation, for the time that it started, not too shabby. There was a whole slave Leia thing with that fucking bikini. And then in the prequels, you had Padme, who started off strong, then doo-doo poo-poo.
Yeah.
In the last movie. I think they got better. And I mean, this is just as time goes on and you learn more and you listen to women more, and they have more opportunity to actually like be part of it. Naturally, that representation just got better and better. And I appreciated having a female protagonist be like the main character.
Yeah.
Like the Luke Skywalker is Rey.
Yeah.
And I like that. And I know some people didn't. They're sexist.
Yeah. Oh,
I appreciated it.
Trust me, we'll get into the effects of the toxic fandom within the Star Wars fandom.
Yeah. I also appreciated that, similar to like Frozen is like the only thing I could think of off the top of my head. Rey wasn't like just there to be someone's like love interest, nor was she interested in love in that way, like a romantic love. At least in the first one.
See, it's interesting you got those vibes, because I always saw in the Force Awakens that it kind of felt like they were sort of setting up a budding romance between Rey and Finn.
I didn't get it. I didn't get that, at least from her side of it.
Yeah,
I didn't get that. It felt more purposeful as like story wise, and I guess the third one.
Yeah.
It always felt one-sided to me.
Right.
In just the first one, it felt like Rey just like found a genuine friend.
Yeah.
2 friends.
Yeah.
3 if you count BB-8, which I do.
Well, she didn't even meet Poe in the first one, remember?
Not at the end?
That was the end of Last Jedi, when Poe was like, "Hi, I'm Poe."
Huh.
Yeah. So, but she did become friends with Leia, so there's that.
There is that. And I like that Leia also had like a lot more to do.
I love that line at the beginning of the movie where Poe is like, "The general's gonna be really happy," and he goes, to me, she's royalty. But like, you know, Poe knows her as General Organa, not as Princess.
Yeah.
Which, you know, that's not to diminish what came in the OG trilogy, but this is obviously like a different time. You know, she's left that life. There's no Alderaan.
Yeah.
She's like, no, I'm the general of the
I'm
resistance.
the fucking general, actually, and you won't listen to me.
And then we have our original heroes in it as well, some more than others. Yeah, Harrison Ford was... I love Harrison Ford.
Do you think he was like, I will do it, but only this one?
Yes, I think he wanted... I don't know if it was originally planned for him to be killed. I think he wanted to be killed. I think this was meant to be his last Star Wars movie. He actually broke his leg on the set of this movie.
Yeah, you told me that. He was going hard. A little too hard.
Yeah.
In certain scenes, and I was like, Mr. Harrison,
And I was
please
like, is that...
relax.
And you know, it was him. You saw his fucking face, like, especially when he was running through the Falcon and stuff. They didn't use a stunt for that. Like, he's just fucking running around punching people and shit.
Let him run, and this is what happens.
He just broke he broke his arm or his hand or something on the set of Indiana Jones recently.
He needs to stop.
Like,
And he needs some milk, quite
he needs
frankly.
some fucking milk.
Someone get the man
He's
some
like,
milk.
Gotta give him some calcium.
Got some fucking bird avian bones.
My bones. I loved how they incorporated the original heroes in it without making it feel like, you
Their
know,
story?
you get a like Dan Aykroyd's cameo in fucking Ghostbusters, you know, like where he's just like there as he was a cab driver who miraculously knew a lot about ghosts, and I think that was supposed to be the joke.
Not for any of them. It wasn't that.
Yeah.
It was just like a bit part. Like, oh, they're just back to be back.
Yeah.
Bye. Like, it meant something that all of them were there.
Yeah, it's just so nice seeing him, like the scene with him and the scenes between he and Leia. You know, it's just like they've been friends a long time. So it's nice to just see them back on screen together as these characters. And of course, you know, we got to Han Solo's death, which was fucking sad, mostly because of Chewie.
Chewie made everything 10 times more sad.
But yeah, so I mean, this movie, it really bridged what people loved about the originals into going into something new.
Way better than the prequels did.
Yeah. Love BB-8. I know we're big droid fans here.
We're big droid fans. Big R2-D2 fan.
Is R2-D2 still your fave?
Yeah.
That's okay. I mean,
BB-8 is so cute, but no one shimmies and shakes like R2-D2.
I do love seeing BB-8 when he is just booking it real fast.
Oh, yeah,
or
he's
when
fucking
Chewbacca screamed at him and he screamed and rolled away. My favorite line of this entire movie is when Harrison Ford says, "Move, ball." Or he does the thumbs up to Finn. Mm-hmm. He's super cute. I love him very, very much.
Cute.
And this movie
like
was also riding high on a lot of other things at the time, a lot of other cultural milestones. For those of you who didn't know, 2015 was also the year Hamilton premiered on Broadway, and this show has a little bit of a Hamilton connection because the scene where they go to Maz's cantina. Whose voice do you hear but Lin-Manuel Miranda singing this cantina song that he and J.J. Abrams wrote specifically for this movie?
See, Lin was everywhere before we even knew he was everywhere.
Yeah, and I think it's called something Jabba. I think it was meant to be written in the language of the Hutts. So,
what do they sound like?
I don't know. I just remember when he died, he was like,
Yeah. Yeah, I had forgotten about that one. Thanks.
But yeah, so this is I think a really strong entry for this sequel trilogy, and I think a lot of people liked it. It set up so much because it also had, like, especially I think what people theorized the most about was the mystery behind Rey because she didn't have a family name, and also that vision she had in the movie.
Wait, which one? In the second one?
No.
In the first one?
Yeah. Remember when she finally finds Luke's lightsaber?
Oh, yeah.
And there's this whole vision, and there's kind of mixed into all of the sound editing. Like, you hear Obi-Wan's voice, you hear Yoda's voice. I think you hear Luke in there somewhere. You know, you see Luke reach out to R2-D2, and you see the Knights of Ren. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on, and people theorized a lot about what all of that meant. And I know a popular theory was that maybe Rey was Luke's daughter or was related to Obi-Wan somehow. And
I thought for the longest time before I watched any Star Wars anything that Rey was Luke's daughter. Like, I thought that was just the thing. That was incorrect.
And people even started looking into, like, the character design because they're like, oh, well, she has 3 buns in her hair, kind of like how Leia had 2 buns in her hair. So, like, maybe she's maybe it's a sky. Like it was just like a whole thing.
Yeah. We're not one to shit on theorizing because we theorize all the time about everything. But
it does directly affect how the perception of the next 2 movies, though. Having this movie almost exactly 30 years since we had the original Star Wars, it was something cool. I think a lot of people really enjoyed. I know I did. Like I said, I think it's my favorite. It's definitely my favorite of the sequels, and it's one of my favorite Star Wars movies in general.
I would agree with that.
But let's go right into our next one. Arguably one of the most controversial of all the anything in Star Wars. We have Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, released in 2017, written and directed by Rian Johnson, whom we all know was the writer and director of Knives Out, music by John Williams, and we have our entire main cast that we had in the last movie, and this time including Kelly Marie Tran, Laura Dern, Benicio del Toro, Andy Serkis, and Mark Hamill. Now, Mark Hamill and Andy Serkis were both in The Force Awakens, just in much more minimal roles. That was another thing, is that we saw Snoke so little in Force Awakens that people were also theorizing about who he was.
I'm sure that was a fucking disappointment in the end.
Oh, I'll tell you more about who people thought he was and then what happened. Prior to the movie's release, Carrie Fisher passed away, and I mean, it was after she had already, like, the movie was already done and ready to be released, but she did die prior to the film's release.
Makes that movie, certain parts hit way different.
Yeah.
Even this far after the fact, years and years after it happened, watching that for the first time again was just like,
it's rough.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get to those moments in just a little bit. So this is kind of it's really not, but the closest thing I can compare it to obviously would be The Empire Strikes Back. You know, our characters for the most part are separated, like our main trio separated from one another. Rey is off training, kind of like Luke was off training. But then we have some differences. You know, Luke is much more of a conflicted hero in this. I wouldn't even know if I'd call him a hero in this.
Yeah. He's like so far removed himself from it.
But I think that makes for an interesting fucking movie. Kylo Ren is also staying a conflicted villain in this. And we finally see something I think I'd never seen in any Star Wars anything before this. We see Rey and Kylo Ren linked by the Force. They can see each other. One of them can even see where the other one is.
And they can like touch each other and grab shit from the other side.
Yeah, I thought that was a really interesting,
crazy, weird thing that happens in the Force that nobody else has ever tried to do before, I guess.
Yeah. What do you tell? That's what I was going to ask next. I want to know your general impressions.
I remember liking the movie, the connection thing, just like the Force jump to the side thing in the prequels, or just like suddenly there's this brand new, like the healing thing,
right?
This brand new power that no one has ever mentioned before, and being like, oh yeah, all Jedi can do that. I understand wanting to like evolve,
right,
and not just be contained to like what was set forth in the very beginning and stick just to that. Because it's going to get boring. You're never going to get anything fresh out of that.
Right.
But there are just some things where I'm like no one had done that before.
So
we'd never seen that before. Or they weren't even like, this is weird. This shouldn't be happening. I've never heard tale of this before. Anything.
So I kind of take it as like, I don't know how much of this was like mentioned in any like Star Wars novels or comics. I will admit, as big a Star Wars fan as I am kind of limited to, I'm only just now getting into the animated stuff with the Bad Batch. But I'm kind of more in line with like the movies and like your Mandalorians and things like that. So I don't know how much of that was mentioned in those, and maybe that's where they're drawing from. But true. I kind of think of it this way. I kind of think of it as just like any other profession. You have people who have been doing it longer, or people who are better at doing things. You have your gymnast who is training, and then you have some mobiles who can like do everything. People like Yoda are able to do more than people like, let's say, Obi-Wan.
That makes sense to me. But Rey and Kylo Ren are very young. They haven't been doing it.
Well, we learn at the end of this movie why they were linked. And we can jump ahead to that now.
Oh, because
Snoke connected them.
Yeah, Snoke, who isn't.
Well, we'll get to that. That's not prevalent to this movie because that's not what this movie set up.
Yeah, but even that's, how does that even happen? Never.
Well, that's the interesting thing, is that because he's like so tapped into the dark side of the Force. So a lot of people thought Snoke was going to be Darth Plagueis, I think his name was. And we heard the story about him in episode 3.
Is he the one that trained, or no, is he the one that was like, he learned to create life or whatever?
Yes. And that's who people were speculating Snoke to be.
You know what? That would have made more sense.
That would have been pretty cool. But even from the prequels, there's all these things that the dark side apparently you're able to do that I kind of attribute like some of that stuff to that. I don't know. I appreciate them not limiting themselves to what the original trilogy set up for in terms of like what you can do with the Force. I do admit some of it is just like...
It just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, like especially the running quick to the side. Like they showed one scene of that and never did it again. It was like, fucking bizarre in episode 1.
I think that that's where it gets me, where I'm just like, never mentioned this before. Don't bring it up again. And it's just like I'm supposed to know that they could do that the whole time.
The jumping thing I can wrap my head around, but just I'm a speedster for half a second and then never doing that again. I'm like, why wouldn't you just be doing that all the time?
That would come in handy, right?
Yeah.
If we could heal people with the Force, that would have come in handy before, right now, right?
I don't know. I'm being very forgiving with this, I will admit. But I think Star Wars in the concept of the Force is open and fluid enough to be like, oh, well, the Force spoke to me. And I'm not saying it's a good excuse, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know.
I mean, it didn't detract from the movie in the moment. It's just stuff that I was thinking about afterwards. And I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, but that also doesn't happen in this movie, so we'll save that. Yeah, and then we have, Poe, who's arrested for most of the movie. Leia is incapacitated for most of the movie. Now, you mentioned it before. They did an interesting thing with this movie because the movie's called The Last Jedi, and we forget that Jedi can be singular or plural. So it was revealed that in other translations of the title, people found out that The Last Jedi was plural, as opposed to just being like about Luke.
One person.
And something this movie started to set up was that Leia herself was a Jedi in the scene where, that big section of her cruiser gets blasted.
And she's thrusted into space.
Floating in space, looks serene still, and it's just like, fuck.
Yeah, fuck me up.
But then she uses the Force to bring herself back to the ship. Talking about someone we'd never seen. We'd never seen her actively use the Force. We'd seen her like kind of be a little sensitive to it. So like being able to sense like something like when Han died or something like that.
Yeah.
But never actually using any sort of powers like that. So that was really cool and just like completely out of left field. And then Laura Dern's in charge for most of the movie, and I like Laura Dern in this movie.
I'll put Laura Dern in anything.
Yeah,
I'm there.
I just it's just not a face I would automatically assume to see in Star Wars.
I think it makes sense.
Yeah, no, I'm not like she was out of. No, I dug it, and I loved her hair in the movie.
I did. I wish she was in more than one.
Yeah,
but I mean, talk about like a 180 character. Like I thought she was like a bad coward.
Yeah,
like a good bad coward. Turns out no, very brave as
She's like, I know what the fuck I'm doing, and you, sir, need to not.
Fuck off.
Yeah.
Also, we got a super cool jump to light speed into the middle of a different ship. That was so cool.
I wish you could have experienced that in a movie theater because the sound completely just like cuts out, and it's just like, whoa.
That's because something that theoretically people could have done the entire time in Star Wars history, but I don't think we'd ever seen that before. No. Badass.
And I don't even know, like, one, we didn't think of it, and they were written in the movie to not think of that either because no one would generally make that jump or attempt to make the jump unless they had the fuel.
Yeah.
But that's where they were like, oh, fuck, we gotta go.
Yeah.
And a big part of the movie was actually the introduction of Rose, played by Kelly Marie Tran, who, I will say, Star Wars fans don't deserve. Y'all don't deserve Kelly Marie Tran.
The first thing that I've ever seen Kelly Marie Tran in was Raya. Fantastic in that, by the way. So I was really excited to see her in this. And I really liked her character in this. She was like, again, how I am with women portrayed in film and television, someone who's not like badass strong character from like I'll beat you up, I know how to use guns person, but still becomes like super integral into the entire mission that we're setting forth. I just appreciate having facets, having like people who aren't all the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the moment we're introduced to her character, she's sobbing because her fucking sister died.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, I'm not a military veteran or anything like that. If you look at it from that perspective, and it's like, okay, she and her sister were soldiers, and literally one of them died in the line of duty. Like, but you still have a fucking job to do.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit.
She still did her job, because even when Finn came up, she was really excited.
Yeah. She was like, you're a hero. And
yeah, to see him. And still, at the end was like, actually...
I'm going to take you in because you're deserting.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. So I appreciate that. And again, after she had just been sobbing. So
yeah. And
I think
go ahead.
You mentioned that like they're soldiers and this is war. I feel like this one felt the most like a war movie.
Yeah.
Like it was like, if you remember at the end when they were on that weird salt planet with the red, and there were like trenches and cannons and soldiers, and it like just the way certain scenes were shot, it looked like a war movie. Like, oh, this is about World War II. You kind of get that feeling from the other ones, just like, oh, this general and blah, blah, blah. And but it felt so much more like war.
Yeah, I think the movie that feels most like war to me is Rogue One.
Yeah.
But this definitely is the one like right behind that for me.
I like
and
Rogue.
Yeah, me too.
And watch Rogue One.
Yeah, and even going into, I remember the first time I watched this, going to that like casino city.
Canto Bight.
Yeah. I remember not being a huge fan of that whole thing because I was like, it felt out of place.
Yeah.
Watching it again, in the story they were telling with Rose, I kind of liked it a little more than when I originally saw it, only because I'm like, okay, we're seeing like a different side of war here. We're seeing all these people who like profit. Yes, exactly. And we also meet Benicio del Toro's character, who's like very much like, look, good or bad, it's all the same. Like this guy sells ships to the First Order and to the Resistance. So like there's good and there's bad, and then there's people who make the money off of it. Yeah. So like I'm just doing what I can to survive. Yeah.
Something very important that you shouldn't forget about every war, fake or real.
Like it's not like it's a very real like commentary on the real world. Like, so I think watching it now is just like taking it out of just Star Wars and kind of like observing it with our current political climate and every political climate that's ever been. It's like
all of them.
It's like, yeah, this is pretty deep.
Yeah, it makes sense now to get that in, instead of just like, oh well, we need them to go here so they get caught.
Yeah. Didn't you tell me that when Kelly Marie Tran saw,
what are they called, farriers?
Sure. Those big old horse looking things?
Those big old horse doe looking dogs. I don't know what they are, but they were practical because they learned from their mistakes of the past and did a lot of practical special effects. So they were animatronics. I love animatronics.
While they were in the stables.
Yes. They weren't just running around. Animatronics.
That's amazing.
They had an animatronic head in the stable. So when they didn't show Kelly Marie Tran, so when you see her reaction to it, that is her actual genuine reaction to seeing that big, like that weird, like nervous, amazed laugh is what she was feeling, because they built it to scale. Like it was a massive fucking thing, and they're cute. If they were smaller, they would be just cute, but because they're so big, it's like, yeah, it's cute. It's also massive.
It's fucking huge.
Fucking huge. But yeah, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Of them to just like a little thing to add to the realism.
Yeah. Yeah. I always appreciate that, and that's what this trilogy does really well, is it goes back to mixing practical with current
good technology.
Yeah. Speaking of cute though, we met some porgs in this movie.
Yeah.
They're fucking screaming their little heads off.
Yeah.
Terrified that Chewbacca was cooking them. But he didn't eat them.
Yeah, he wasted it.
Yeah, I know. Maybe he found a dead one and did that, but
I would hope not.
I don't know. But anyway, going into like the twist with, I was going to talk about them separately, but I think it's important to lump them all together. The twist with Luke, Kylo Ren, and Snoke all kind of like play off of one another. So we find out that Luke was like, he ostracized himself because he felt responsible for creating Kylo Ren. Because we find out apparently in both versions of that story, Luke briefly considered just fucking killing him. Yep.
And when you have two separate sides of the story, but they can agree on one thing, that means that one thing definitely happened.
Yeah.
He definitely was like, whoop, just like a little like, whoop.
Never mind. But
it was too late. The damage had been done. But also he said that like, oh, he was already gone. Like he was already gone.
Yeah.
But he wasn't. Was he gone? No.
People were upset with how Luke was portrayed in this movie because they thought
it was a OOC for him to be all haggard and mad and
like I think the Luke people wanted to see, even as he was, literally 30 years older, was the Luke we saw in The Mandalorian season 2. I think that's what people were, not young, literally, but just like,
can you stop moving your fingers right in front of the camera?
Oh shit, I'm sorry. When what the fuck was I even talking about? We're talking about Luke.
People expected Luke to be young.
No, I don't think they expect him to be young.
Young at heart, like still spirited in the same way that he was in the originals.
And just this like, really optimistic hero. And I was like, okay, if we're talking about the original trilogy, like, was Luke optimistic? Sure, but he was also very reckless, and he himself did struggle with the dark side. That's his whole thing, is that, because yes, he sees the good in people, but also like he acts impulsive and off of feeling.
Yeah.
And the Jedi, because they're fucking sociopaths, are like, you shouldn't have feelings. Don't feel. Don't love anything. To me, I think you bringing that aspect back makes for one a more interesting character rather than just someone like fucking Superman who's just a Boy Scout.
Yeah.
But I also think what added fuel to the fire was that Mark Hamill made a comment in an interview.
Yeah.
And about not my Luke, not really understanding where his character was going in this.
Yeah.
And like I think that's one thing to like maybe not fully agree, but when there's already so much toxicity going on around everything. And John Boyega also made some comments. I don't know if it was after the fact or what, but basically he was like, this is a story that went in a weird direction for me. Which again, that's fair. I personally liked it. I personally think it makes for much more interesting storytelling if you kind of subvert a lot of those expectations. But when you do have a story that has already set up so much, like Snoke being your big bad, and then you literally kill him a third of the way through the movie, or I'm sorry, most of the way through the movie.
2/3.
2/3. There you go. Thank you. I think, yeah, you're going to piss some people off because they did kind of set something up. And I think that's the big issue with this particular franchise, is that they didn't really have a writer's room. It feels like two completely different franchise starters to me. I don't know if you get that.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think because of what the first movie set up and their lack of communication between what's going to happen in all three movies, I think they were coming up with it on the fly.
Yeah, weird twists and turns.
And
like you said, I don't mind subverting expectations. I think it's kind of necessary. Again, if something's following your expectations, a new movie you've never seen before, and you're like, oh yeah, this is gonna happen, and this and this and this, that's not a good movie. It didn't do its job.
Yeah.
Unless you made it.
Yeah.
And you know how it's gonna go. But I don't mind subverting expectations. I don't mind having a character be like a little different, because time absolutely ruins you. Do you remember how young and optimistic you were 20 years ago?
And how
I used to eat dirt. I don't do that anymore. I'm old and grizzled and find enjoyment in anything.
Old man Kendra.
I wish I could just eat some dirt again,
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't mind any of that. But when you're going, it kind of feels like we're going along the first movie, and the second movie's kind of like, whoa. But then the third movie's like, actually, and just like, I don't know, it's just disjointed. Like, it doesn't feel fluid all the way through. Yeah. I didn't mind it in the second movie because I didn't know where we were going to go from there.
Yeah.
But if anything, the third movie trying to undo some of the stuff that they did in the second movie was to its detriment. Snoke was meaningless in the third movie.
Which, they created a cool character concept. I mean, he looked cool.
He looked nasty. Was he in anything else? Was he like anything before?
Not that I know of. And I mean, I do like that storyline led into like a really seemingly unhinged Kylo Ren becoming Supreme Leader, just self-appointing himself as Supreme Leader. And we start seeing General Hux like, I know I'm bad, but like, what the fuck, dude?
Yeah, which comes back around in the third one.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I didn't mind that part of it.
That's one of those things I actually enjoyed out of that, like, really bizarre twist they decided to take with Snoke, because again, it makes for something really, really interesting. And then seeing that scene where Luke walks up to Leia and he kisses her forehead. Fuck. Yeah, especially when you're in the movies watching that shit and like, you're still raw from Carrie Fisher dying. You're just like, I don't even know if that was scripted. Mark Hamill might have just done that. I don't know. He's a big improviser. And that was a cool little thing they did with the special effects in that scene between Luke and Kylo Ren. You mentioned the salt planet where everything turns red when it gets touched.
That's cool.
And yeah, whenever Luke was walking, there were no red footprints behind him.
See, we should have known, but I was still taken for a loop. And I was like, I didn't know at what point, like, I thought, because there was like an initial blast from that big old fucking cannon. And I was like, oh, did that kill him? And then he was just like immediately like Force Ghost. I'm gonna fight him. But no, he never. It was like, what was it? There was like Iron Man when he went and saved Peter from drowning.
Right.
And then the suit opened and he wasn't even there.
Yeah.
It was like that, but like more badass. A and B, he was just like, okay, now I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like the American Next Top Model theme at the end when someone fades out of the picture. That was him.
But yeah, this movie, it didn't have the line, I've got a bad feeling about this.
Oh, were people pissed about that?
People were so the line was never spoken by a person.
Did someone retcon it back in and was like, oh, the droid at this time said?
I think it was revealed by Rian Johnson that at the beginning when BB-8 said something to Poe and Poe was like, come on, positive thoughts. It's that BB-8 said, I've got a bad feeling about this.
Interesting.
So,
or he forgot it and was like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
BB-8 said it.
And then there was no actual lightsaber battle in this. Now, we saw people using lightsabers in this movie, but no one actually had a lightsaber duel in this movie, which was interesting. Yeah, it was just cool seeing, Luke use the Force in a way to still help everyone else, even if it meant kind of sacrificing himself. And that scene of seeing him on like the Jedi Stone, looking at the two suns, fucked me up. Not gonna lie, that fucked me up in the movies.
I'm sure it did.
But yeah, it was a very much a different Star Wars movie. But again, I think this, a lot of it was that
poor communication
led to fans feeling rejected. And I mean, the same exact thing fucking happened with Game of Thrones. Well, people over theorizing. It happened with Game of Thrones. It happened with WandaVision. Especially with Game of Thrones, because that show was still ongoing when people were theorizing about it. They eventually started writing what people's theories were.
That's when it's gone, it's off, it's done.
And then people complain like, "Oh, the fucking
it's
season,
all fan service.
It sucked."
Well, you can't have it both ways.
Yeah. I do really like this movie though. I think it's one of the most interesting Star Wars movies we got. It's one of the better sequels we've ever gotten. But I just think because it really is almost self-serving, it kind of fails to...
You think this one's self-serving?
Not that it's self-serving. Maybe that's not the right way to phrase it. But it was busy trying to like do something new.
And yeah, try to be independent.
Yeah. Where I don't think it works in the whole. I'm not saying that it's not good. I'm just saying... in the whole picture of what we ended up getting, it feels like a random kind of entry.
Okay, that's fair.
But I still, like I said, I still really like this movie.
I still liked it. I didn't even. It's only in reflecting right now that I'm like, yeah, it did kind of feel different from the first one.
Yeah.
If they had stuck one way or the other, I don't think I would have had as much of an issue with the third one. But the fact that they try to course correct too late.
With that, let's go right into it. We're gonna talk about episode 9 now. The Rise of Skywalker came out in 2019. This is the conclusion of the Skywalker saga, and in that sort of course correction, not only with the movie, but Disney's and Lucasfilm's attempting to course correct. They rehired J.J. Abrams to direct, and the movie was written by J.J. Abrams and Chris Terrio, with a story by the former two and Derek Connolly and Colin Trevorrow. Now, episode 9 was supposed to be directed by Colin Trevorrow, with a screenplay by himself and Derek Connolly. But they both left the project because of creative differences with Lucasfilm executive producer Kathleen Kennedy. And we'll get into that. Music by John Williams. He said this was going to be his last Star Wars movie, and so this has been his last Star Wars movie.
How old is he?
That man's old.
Yeah.
So some of our additional cast we have in this movie, we have Richard E. Grant, who we just saw in Loki, Naomi Ackie, Kerry Russell, Billy D. Williams as Lando Calrissian, and Ian McDiarmid returning as Emperor Palpatine.
Returning? Was he from like the prequels?
He played Palpatine, I believe, since the originals. I think there was one stand-in for episode maybe 5, but I think since Return of the Jedi, he's been playing Palpatine, and he was Palpatine in the prequels as well. Yeah, so Ian McDiarmid returning.
Goddamn.
As Emperor Palpatine. Carrie Fisher's performance was comprised of unused and repurposed footage from The Force Awakens. And several stand-ins, mostly from her own daughter, Billie Lourd, who's been in this entire trilogy as well.
Yeah, that's an extra fuck you up when you go back and watch it and you're like, oh man, she's right there that whole time.
Yeah.
Like she had to work after it. Like, I don't know. It's just, but also pretty cool that they got to work together.
Yeah.
On something. Because
Billie Lourd is, she's an act, she's been doing her own thing for years now.
Booksmart.
She was in Booksmart. She was hilarious in Booksmart.
Yeah.
God, she was fucking buck wild. But yeah, it was cool to have her in this as well. One thing I will say about this movie, before we even get into like what the story did, a lot of the other side of the Star Wars fandom was very upset that the Star Wars franchise, caved in to the toxic side and was like, oh yeah, Rose is barely going to be in this one.
Yeah.
Rose isn't going to be in it until like the last little bit of the movie. And even then we're going to replace her importance with someone else.
And abandon this like entire romance.
Yeah, that was another thing.
They actually built up.
Yeah.
Explicitly.
And it felt a little more normal.
Realistic.
Yeah. Anyway.
Shitty.
Yeah, I was really disappointed with how they used Kelly Marie Tran in this movie. Just because she's a wonderful actress, so I just don't know why you wouldn't want her. And well, I do, because you guys bitched out and listened to all your racist and sexist fans. Anyway, so yeah, this movie sets up the return of Palpatine. And essentially, throughout the entire movie, it's like, oh, Palpatine's back, and he somehow has all these fucking ships, and that's it.
Yeah. So Palpatine survived. Didn't he get like thrown down a shaft or something?
They did throw him down. So something they mentioned in the beginning of the movie, and something they mentioned, I think, in the novelization of the movie, is the usage of clone technology that we see in the prequels and like Bad Batch and stuff. So I don't know if it's that he survived or they used like his dead ass body to try and clone him back into existence.
Okay.
But they also used that clone technology to create and recreate
a bunch of
Snokes. Yeah.
Snokes in a tank.
Snokes in a tank. New band name. And then in a little bit of dialogue at the beginning, we find out like Palpatine's like, it's literally a scene of Palpatine just going, it's been me all along, whether you've been hearing Vader in your head or Snoke or...
Yeah, how did he do that?
Yeah, it's literally been me.
I would just be like, okay, how? For everything. How are you alive? How are you in my head? How? Was he Snoke this whole time?
Apparently. Right out the gate, I did not hate this movie. I didn't hate any of the sequels. But you kind of nailed it on the head. I think Disney, Lucasfilm, I think they had two options. I think their options were, we either try and go back to what Force Awakens was setting up, or we continue down this new path with The Last Jedi. And I think because The Last Jedi was so divisive among fans, critically, The Last Jedi is one of the highest rated, highest reviewed Star Wars movies of all time. So it was a critical and commercial success, but among the fans, it was incredibly divisive. So I think Lucasfilm freaked out and we're like, okay, so we don't like the story that this one director did. Let's just get J.J. Abrams back. And
he'll blah blah through.
Yeah, and it's like, and it's not. I mean, I like J.J. Abrams as a director. I think I like The Force Awakens a lot, like we just mentioned a little while ago. But yeah, this movie just really felt like, rather than being a conclusion that like they worked tirelessly on, it felt like they were just trying to rush to close this book, finish this chapter and be done with it. Because around this time, The Mandalorian had just premiered on Disney Plus, 2019. And this movie has the tie-in with The Mandalorian, with where we see the healing factor of the Force.
Time is meaningless. Time means nothing.
Isn't it weird to think about that they were it literally the same year?
I guess I just didn't care. I just didn't care about the movies, I guess, because feels like forever ago, and Mandalorian feels like last week. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, so...
I can understand them being like, we got something good in the works.
Yeah, and I think they were just like, we just need to end this fucking thing.
We gotta duct tape it.
People don't like what we're doing. We need to just fucking... Because remember, right before this, Solo, which all these movies had really troubled production
Yeah.
You know, the original directors from that got fired, and then this director got fired, and yeah, it was just...
Yeah.
It seemed like at this point in time, Lucasfilm didn't really have... I know I'm going to give them a lot of credit right now. They didn't have a Kevin Feige to, like, really... And a team like they do at Marvel to just, like...
Oversee
everything, smooth it out, make sure you're putting out quality work.
Yeah.
They essentially had the president, Kathleen Kennedy, like, okaying everything, and... Like, she was really adamant on having, like, Kylo Ren's redemption arc and things like that.
I don't know. It just... to be fair, all things considered, after you mention all this, all the, like, trouble and problems and all that stuff, what we ended up getting is not that bad.
No.
For as much stuff as they had to do and felt they needed to fix, even though a lot of people maybe wouldn't have thought that certain things needed to be fixed, but it still ended up being overall a good movie.
Yeah, and like on top of, as if all of the production things weren't bad enough, one of the sole things that was going to be consistent throughout all the sequels was the importance of Leia. And because that was like an original like George Lucas thing, had he, you know, because he had treatments written for a sequel trilogy, and the plan was always to have, you know, Leia to be revealed as the last Jedi.
A wrench got thrown into that plan.
I think they tried to like, I think they tried to salvage it, but because because Carrie Fisher had died, like they really were limited with what they could actually do, because they weren't about to create a CG double for her.
Not for an entire thing. Yeah.
They weren't gonna like Tarkin her, like,
yeah,
you know, considering everything they had to work against. I think this was what we got was the best possible outcome considering all those hurdles.
Yeah.
A lot of it felt like convenient. But there's still some interesting things that did happen, you know, since we're going this route. A lot of people were pissed in the last movie because I didn't even mention this in the Last Jedi section. People were pissed because the reveal that Rey's parents were like nothing. We're literally like nothing. He said they're drunks and they sold you to blah 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 blah. And people
subverting expectations.
Yeah, people wanted it. But people were so like, oh, that's impossible. How does she have a connection with the Force? How is she a good pilot? I'm like, how did Luke have all that shit? Anyway, anyway. But in this, we find out it's revealed that Rey is indeed a Palpatine.
Yes.
She's a descendant of Palpatine. So
she's his granddaughter.
When I first heard this, I was like, who is letting Palpatine, nasty old crusty no finger having Palpatine,
in between
clap them cheeks?
We're both disgusting. But it's a valid question.
So I think that actually goes, I think that's another thing that was mentioned in the novelization, was that his son was actually a clone. Because remember, as we see in the Bad Batch, there is a capability to like make differences in a clone.
Yes.
So I think that's actually what happened.
They're like, in the books, they're like, listen, we know that he is unfuckable. So
yeah.
It's just a nasty little clone.
And so that's how that happened.
Do you think they're going to clone Darth Vader?
I mean, I don't know. Maybe.
Obi-Wan? Is that how Hayden Christensen is back?
I don't think so. I don't think they're going to do that. But I do think that, let's save the Obi-Wan talk for after this.
Okay. I didn't have anything else to add to that.
Well, it goes back to a question you asked in the last Revisited.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll get back to that. We get the first hints when we see Rey shoot lightning out of her hands.
Yes.
Which is kind of cool because we never seen that from anyone other than Palpatine. That should have been the real, like, first clue. Yeah,
I did know, this is like one of the things I knew was that Rey was related to Palpatine. I knew that before any of the other movies came out. Before I saw them. So
right.
It was not a real shock to me when lightning bolts came out of her fingies. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of cool to see, like, again, something in the past that was like, oh, this one person can do it, don't ask any questions, that's just something they can do. For them to bring it back and be like, oh, well, like, it's passed on, it's whatever, and she can do it too, it's not just this one fucking nasty old man.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that. But yeah, I knew going in that she already was a Palpatine, but seeing that was like, yeah,
it's like, and the more I like think about like what actually happens in the story, it's like J.J. Abrams was again trying to incorporate a lot of things from the originals to kind of evoke that feeling of nostalgia. I just don't think it worked, or at least worked as well.
Also, it was a lot. I remember at the end of it just being like, that was a lot of stuff.
So like they go to that planet, where they meet Poe's old gang. We find out he was a spice runner.
Here's another thing. I don't mind that. People very, 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 very clearly wanted, and I thought that this was a relationship in the movie, was Poe and Finn. I thought that was canon. So it almost feels like just tacking that in at the end was also just like, oh, by the way, he's not gay. Continue on. Like, I don't know. It just felt very much like we didn't need any romances in any of these movies.
Yeah.
We didn't need not a one, especially not fucking.
Well, we'll get to that.
That one.
We'll
yeah,
get to
but
that.
like, I don't know. It just felt so unnecessary.
It's, you know, a lot of people, I understand. I understand why people were shipping Poe and Finn.
People ship all the time.
But I personally never got that feeling from the two of them.
That's fair.
Like a romantic setup between Poe and Finn.
Yeah.
And also, you know what? Let's talk about it a little. Kind of like you. Oh my God.
Kylo heard his name.
Kind of like you. I don't like that anytime any two characters
Are on screen
together, it automatically, like whether it be, you know, same sex or not.
More frequently same sex. Have you noticed?
Yeah, and it's like not everyone has to be romantically inclined toward one another.
Right. And also, we don't need to have romances in action adventure movies at all.
No.
It's like fine if it's in that, but just the fact that it like wasn't even a thing from the jump, it's like, why are we striving to shove that in last minute?
And people did that a lot with like Lord of the Rings, you know, between Frodo and Sam.
Oh, yeah. You know what's some fan fiction I stumbled across, Jonathan? Which is like actually a very robust category. Mandalorian, so Din Djarin, Luke Skywalker. What? Isn't that buck wild? I mean, not to yuck any yums, but
no, yeah,
I mean, it's perfectly fine.
But I'm just saying,
it's just like, you wouldn't also just be like mad at fucking Lucasfilm for not giving you your Din Djarin Luke Skywalker fan fiction.
Here's an example. Like in Guardians of the Galaxy, they set up that Star-Lord, Peter Quill, is a bit of a womanizer. Yeah. You know, we kind of see that progression of him just being sexually attracted to Gamora to like actually like falling in love with her. But in this, like, we really only ever knew, like, I think we projected, like, we as a wide audience,
the royal we,
projected a certain type of personality to Poe Dameron because Oscar Isaac himself is
so fine,
is a handsome man. I think we project
He's
that.
very charming.
Yeah, and then I think Star Wars was just like, yeah. By the way, he is a little bit of a womanizer too.
Oh yeah, this
3 movies in.
This one lady.
This one woman.
And were they ever even dating? Did they say that they dated? I thought she hated him.
She hated him in this one because he like left and shit.
Oh yeah, hated him, but then still like was like, oh here's the ticket to my freedom, and you can have it. You just showed up.
Yeah. Again, convenience for convenience sake.
Yeah.
But that when they were on that planet, they did have that sad ass scene of C-3PO.
Yeah.
Where they're like, he's like, I'm gonna take a look at my friends for the last time.
Yeah.
Oh man, I teared up. But then at the end of the movie, they throw that away because they're like, oh, actually, R2 can revive his memories, and it's like, well, okay. It's like you gotta stick with one thing or the other. You're trying to give too many people too many things.
Nah, I kind of figured that they would. I don't think they would have let him not have a memory.
But
I thought they were going to get back like a partial memory. And I guess he did because he didn't remember like the last month or whatever. But I thought they would get like an old download.
My favorite part with C-3PO though was when the fucking stormtroopers were asking him questions and he just started speaking gibberish and they're like, that's not even a language.
Yeah.
Apparently... So in The Force Awakens, we had gotten our first celebrity stormtrooper cameo with Daniel Craig as the stormtrooper who was talking to Rey.
Yeah.
Apparently, this movie had a couple other celebrity stormtroopers. I didn't write down who. The only person I remember being in it was Ed Sheeran, was one of the stormtroopers.
Oh. Okay.
I don't know. I was just
good for him. I guess. Wasn't he also in Game of Thrones?
Yeah. That one cameo was a little more controversial, but yeah, he was in Game of Thrones. No. I'm thinking about how we saw Harrison Ford back in this one.
Yes.
Surprise. I actually liked the scene in this one though.
Yeah.
Nice little callback to his I love you, I know moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, I think overall this movie just, it was fine. It ignored The Last Jedi for most of it. They kept like certain things like the mind link and like they actually had like a lightsaber fight in their like linked state. That was kind of cool.
There was more good to be pulled from.
I still enjoyed watching it, but for like wide audiences, it left a lot of fans unsatisfied. And again, I think it just felt rushed. I think at this point they had gone through so much trouble on their film production that they just wanted to be done with it. And Disney as a whole was focusing so much on Disney Plus and like what to do with their new televised content that that's what they wanted to do. But I'm excited in the direction Star Wars is going in now. This trilogy, I like this trilogy. It out of all three trilogies, it feels the most disjointed.
Feels the most Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, where it had a really strong opening.
And then
And it's like they tried to go darker until they didn't.
Yeah, I don't know. If they had stuck with like the vibe of the first movie, or if the first movie stuck with the vibe of the second, which doesn't make sense chronologically, but it would have been fine. It was just the fact that, oh, hey.
But anyway, yeah, I agree though. I think it just feels the most like I actually think had the Rise of Skywalker focused more on what The Last Jedi set up, I think it still would have been fine, even if the tone had kind of shifted from what The Force Awakens set up. Mm-hmm. But because they tried to like make a U-turn and go back to what The Force Awakens was, I think they missed out on what they could have done and what actually made The Force Awakens special. But I'm excited about where Star Wars is going from here. There's 2 movies coming out. I don't know when. There's no release date. But one of them is going to be directed by Patty Jenkins. The other, who I'm holding out hope. Hopefully I think Dave Filoni is in more of an executive role at Lucasfilm than he was.
He was promoted.
So
please, Dave Filoni, be the Kevin Feige of Star Wars.
He truly deserves it. And then there's another movie that will be directed by Taika Waititi.
But we don't know anything like about them or anything.
No, Patty Jenkins, I think her movie is called Rogue Squadron, and it has a lot to do with like pilots. Yeah. So like we'll probably see a lot of cool like X-wing fights and stuff.
Game Squadrons, the game.
Maybe. Yeah. So
interesting. That's interesting because that's cool. I don't mind the idea of that. Taika Waititi, I guess, he's done Mandalorian, so it's not like he goes absolutely buck wild full Taika in it.
Yeah.
He sticks to the assignment, but that'll be interesting. I have high hopes for that one. Patty Jenkins, not so much. Sorry.
She's 1 for 1 for me.
She's 1 for 2.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
Loved the first Wonder Woman movie. Hated the second.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, and obviously we have the whole Star Wars TV universe is expanding.
Right. And I really like those.
Yeah. So I think they're getting their footing back. It was just unfortunate that
they fumbled the ball right at the end.
Literally at the end of the finish line. We didn't really care for the Reylo reveal.
Oh, in fact, we hated it.
Yeah.
Oh, we hated it. Kind of glad that he died right after, because boy, did that really chap my ass. Because it was so, again, completely unnecessary. They could have had like that moment and just like don't kiss. Oh my gosh. It would have been fine. It would have been fine. I don't understand the need to force it.
Yeah.
Force it?
Especially because it wasn't set up in any way that meant
sense.
Anything.
It made no sense. And then again, like you can try it. At least Kylo had more of like a very like clear, like from the start he was conflicted. Whereas like, well, Anakin at the start was also conflicted, but then like went real bad and then like was like, oh, actually no, I'm almost dead, so now I'll be good again.
Yeah.
But like I could kind of understand being a little bit more what's that word?
I don't know what the fuck you're trying to say.
Empathetic.
Yeah. Okay.
I think you can be a little bit more empathetic towards Kylo, because he did think that Luke was going to give him a good murder.
Yeah.
You know? When
he felt betrayed.
Yeah. But also he was like a petulant, like fucking moody ass teenager throughout all 3 films. Yeah. But like, I don't know. If you would have just left it just to be like, oh, he's being friendly to be friendly.
We didn't learn anything about the Knights of Ren and how that shaped his.
Yeah.
It
was
but one thing, I almost forgot. Thank you for helping me up there, Kendra. In the last Revisited, you asked if you can project the Force Ghost to see like blah 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 blah, and maybe that's how we'll see Hayden Christensen.
Yes, if you can project a Force ghost without being dead?
Yes. So no, but you can apparently like fucking astral project, and that's what Luke did in The Last Jedi.
Okay, so that wasn't.
So he wasn't.
Yeah, because he wasn't blue.
Because he wasn't blue, and he wasn't dead. He just he like projected a version of himself there, and that's why he looked different.
And same with Leia in the last one, right?
Yeah,
kind of. She spoke to him.
Yeah,
and also, but Han in the second one was a Force ghost.
He wasn't in the second. You're talking about the third one. He was in Rise of Skywalker. Han wasn't in.
When
Yoda was in the Last Jedi.
No, when he was talking like in that weird ocean planet.
Yeah, that was Rise of Skywalker.
See, here's the thing. That third one was fucking chock full, and I don't remember.
Yeah.
Most.
Well, that's why I'm fucking telling you.
I know, but so that was a Force ghost? He wasn't blue.
He also wasn't a Jedi.
Oh, yeah.
I think that was just
memory?
Yeah.
Whatever.
I think that's what they said. He's like, you're just a memory.
Just a memory. Yeah, but...
I mean, Kylo Ren's fucking not. He's unhinged anyway, so like he's just going a little
perhaps
cuckoo.
Wasn't all there. It's just confusing, and I wish they would have explained it better.
Yeah, but
maybe we'll see an astral projection.
Yeah, I think maybe we'll see a sort of projection like that, or they're mind linked, and then maybe that's how they're kind of connected for a while. But I do think
that would be interesting.
But if we see Hayden Christensen without the helmet, without the stuff, I think that's how we see him, is that he projects like a younger version of himself or something.
Young hot version. Well, I guess he wouldn't be that much. He couldn't look that young.
Well, he could if they use that Marvel tech. They use that fucking Marvel de-ager. Anyway, well, this has been revisited for the first time. Let us know what you guys thought of the Star Wars sequel trilogy, and yeah, would love to hear your comments. Leave them in the comment section below.
Yes, make sure you're subscribed. Also.
Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Also, feel free to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Twitch. All right, see you next time.